Welcome, guys. We are here today with founder of the Apothecary at the Bonsai Gardens, Jason Moyer, and also his son's here with us today, Cohen Moyer. And we just want to get started on this first episode with the series we want to be doing, exploring different areas within mindfulness and meditative practices. And today we're going to be talking about your journey, how you started your mindfulness journey, specifically with Bonsai Care, and also talk a little bit about what you're doing with your business, the Apothecary at the Bonsai Gardens, and just explore this world you've kind of created with Bonsai Care and all of that. So I don't know if you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your journey, how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, my name's Jason, like you said. My wife and I, we live in Utah. I have 5 kids. We own a business together, and I'm now starting this business.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, I was pretty antagonistic towards this kind of thing, like meditation and things. Not antagonistic as in I hated it, but I always thought it was just kind of worthless. I was raised thinking it doesn't help at all. It doesn't do anything. It's just, this is very stereotyped, but kind of like a hippie practice that my family did not do. Then what happened was I was working in Salt Lake, and I had about an hour commute every day.
Yeah.
And I was trying to do really well at my job. I wanted to be able to support the family better than I was at the time. So I was looking for promotions, and what I was doing was I was listening to podcasts and audiobooks on business management and self-help books, things like that, inspirational stories. And inevitably what would happen is sometime during the drive, some thought would hit me. What I would do is I would pause what I was listening to and just spend the rest of the drive kind of in quiet, dwelling on that thought that had come to me. Didn't put 2 and 2 together that this was any sort of meditation or mindfulness thing. Just realized I was getting a lot of my best ideas at work on how to manage from that drive time, that mindfulness time. Then in 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic started, and they sent everyone home to work from home. And what I noticed was I was missing that drive time significantly. I was waking up, going to the computer, logging in, getting on Slack. It was just a grind. It was no longer enjoyable to me. I wasn't coming up with great ideas. And I started to put 2 and 2 together that was kind of quiet time for my brain to think of things. I probably still wasn't calling it meditation at that time. But it started to warm up here, and I was able to go out in the garden, and I found that same time in the quiet of the garden, because no one else in my family likes gardening.
Yeah.
So it was just me out there. And so it was very quiet. I was able to be with my thoughts, same way as on the drive time. And I started to see the same kind of turnaround in my my thoughts and my behavior and my life that I saw when I was able to do that during the drive. Then in winter, sorry, this is a long story, but the long version is in winter, I wasn't able to go outside and garden anymore. And so now I was looking for something else. And I think it was around Christmas time. I found this British guy in London who is Japanese descent who taught bonsai on YouTube. And so I grabbed one of my houseplants, because I've always had tons of houseplants, and I started experimenting on it based on what he was teaching. And at that point, I was realizing that this was meditative. I was meditating in my thoughts. Bonsai is very much meditative. You're there, you're focused, you're thinking about what can I do here to set this up for the next 20 years, next 50 years, things like that.
So you kind of unintentionally embarked on this journey of mindfulness by first doing that commute to Salt Lake every day, having those 45 minutes to be alone with your thoughts, kind of meditating and pondering about how you want to be better at your work, how you want to be better as a father. You got your son with us here today. I think it's really cool. You kind of created this culture within your family and within yourself to practice these mindfulness habits, and to specifically focus on plant care and gardening, and which now has led you to more bonsai care. I think that's really cool.
Well,
and yeah, I think what do you ultimately want to get out of these practices, and the benefits you want to see from all this?
For myself?
Yeah, for yourself or for your family?
Yeah, I mean, I really do think there's that saying that a lot of times your best ideas come in the shower. It's the same thing, I think. Maybe you're not meditating in the shower, but you're alone, you're quiet with your thoughts, and random thoughts can occur to you. And what I want to get out of that is I want to be able to have those best ideas on things I can do, like how I can be a better person, how I can be a better father, husband, etc. And I think a lot of the times those come when you're not specifically thinking about that one thing, but you're letting your mind kind of be at peace, and you're not doing busy work. I mean, I guess bonsai might be classified as busy work, gardening might be classified as busy work, but it's mindless work. Like your brain can learn muscle memory, and you can start just doing it, and that's when your brain can kind of like wander and hit on these random ideas that will make you better at whatever you're trying to pursue. And I don't go into it with a specific goal when I'm trying to do it. It's just I like, one of the most fulfilling parts of your life is when you feel like you're accomplishing good things. And when I was doing that at work in Salt Lake, I was seeing pretty dramatic success. I was getting promotions quickly. I was able to, in a relatively short period of time, provide a pretty good life for my family.
Yeah.
And all that I attribute to that quiet time when I was able to have those thoughts. So that's mainly my goal, is I want to be able to have that time to have those thoughts and come up with the best ideas in my life.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think I love how, just that one little like switch you made throughout your day, just taking 45 minutes to be mindfulness, has now led you to where you are now, being able to provide for your family, and you feel like physically, mentally better with yourself, and you have more clear thoughts, and you can accomplish a lot more in your life when you take time to be mindful. Now we kind of want to dive into what you have going on today with your business, with the Apothecary at the Bonsai Gardens, and we want to talk a little bit about what are your aims and mission for the Apothecary, and like what do you want to build with this business?
So if you wanted to boil it down to one sentence, I want the business to support meditative habits. For me, that's bonsai and gardening. For someone else, I know they do like breath work. I have family who are big into yoga. And so while I've never personally done those things, I know those things are also meditative habits and have helped those people. So it's about expanding the horizon and supporting others who are hopefully discovering the things, like maybe not like I did, but the same type of concepts I did, because I really do believe it helped me a lot.
Yeah, I think that's really cool that you want to share what you've learned with others, and also incorporate different practices, and not only reaching like the local audience but worldwide, like with this video series. Getting to know different people with different knowledge and expertise within certain areas. And I think building a community is super important. Would you agree? Like building a community of healthier living with healthier habits, and also just getting to like learn from each other. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's the only way a model like this works, and not just in a business sense. I think you can develop meditative hobbies as a lone wolf, but you're going to be limited in what you find, and that's why I do want it to become a community. The physical store here in Utah is going to reach a very small percentage of people, and so I want to use that as kind of like a test kitchen, and like test out these ideas. Like, hey, let's bring in an expert here and talk about this, and then we can play on that idea and develop new concepts, and then via the online platforms, YouTube is a great spot to do this. Social media is a great spot to do this. We can then spread that and create a community of people who ideally will help each other out, will provide more of these ideas, talk about their experiences, and the whole time we can support them. Provide maybe tools they need, or advice, or these experts that we're going to talk to, can share the things like that British guy. I mean, I never would have gone into bonsai if he had not been out there sharing his. That's kind of the idea. In fact, if he'd not been created a YouTube channel, and every week would post a video of him styling a different kind of bonsai, I would not have gone into the bonsai part, and then I would have been. I mean, I'd like to think I would have found something else, but I probably would have been wandering for a long time before I did.
Yeah, I love that community aspect you've kind of talked about with your business and how you want to reach just anyone you can. And I think, I think the most common struggle for someone who's started on their own journey within mindfulness, within creating a healthier life, is they don't even know where to start. So I think providing a platform, whether it be online or a physical store space that they can go to and meet with people and talk to people will really help everyone in the long run to start their journey and also to explore different avenues and areas within mindfulness. I think that's really cool.
No, thank you. I hope it is. I really am optimistic, and I believe that it can help pretty much everyone. Depending on, I mean, I don't think everyone needs to go down the same direction that I went down.
Yeah.
Which is, again, why I want to expand this and support all those different hobbies and build that community of different people and different practices.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. I love that. Well, today, so we know your expertise and knowledge is specifically around bonsai care, and we wanted to know if we can learn a little bit more about that with you by doing a live styling session.
Of course.
With you and Cohen as well.
I've been doing this for a couple of years, so I do just want to put a caveat. I'm not like a master bonsai artist or anything. I am a little bit obsessive about it, but for someone who knows more than I do, they will probably spot me doing things that are like, taboo in the bonsai world or things like that. For me, it's not about being the perfect model, like Japanese style bonsai artist. It's about making and trying to create trees in miniature that reflect what I like to see in nature.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do. And whether it's the right technique or not, I do try to learn proper techniques for like wiring and like root pruning and things like that. But yeah.
So, well, if it's okay with
let's
you,
do
can
it.
we get started? Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I've picked out a plant for you. I've picked out a plant here for Cohen.
All right. Should we get these on the table?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
And then I've got my own plant.
No. And while we do this, if you just mind explaining a little bit about what we have here and different tools we're going to be using, and
of course,
just any other important things to know.
Juniper is kind of like a staple of the bonsai community. Juniper's trees are they can be one of the best because of its ability to have live wood versus dead wood. They're very durable. They're hard to kind of get beyond repair.
So these two are both juniper.
They're different species of juniper. This one I might say might be the same species as what you have. I don't think so though. This one has been specifically prepared for a bonsai setting. Yours is a nursery one. Mine is a nursery one that I looked at, and a lot of times in the nursery you don't get the ideal thing. But I also really believe you can probably make any plant work if you want to. You don't need to find a perfect bonsai plant starter.
That's another question I want to ask you. So what does the word bonsai mean? Does have it what considers a plant or a tree to be bonsai?
Yeah, I don't speak Japanese. Cohen just said it though. So
you want to explain, Cohen?
I've learned from my mentors. What does it mean?
Plant in a tray.
Plant in a tray.
So my understanding is I think it's bonsai I'm probably still butchering it, but I think that's the closer pronunciation. Bone means tray, and sai means tree.
Okay.
So tree in a tray. If you put it in a shallow container, you've basically made a bonsai. At the barest definition of the word, again, I may be butchering some definitions there, but that's the way I understand it.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. So how do we get started? What's the first step?
So, first step is let's take it out of this pot.
Okay.
And just put it on the table.
All right.
It's probably got a lot of roots in there. It's not going to fall all apart.
Should I do the thing I did last time?
Sure.
So,
Yeah, what would be the best way? I'm going to let you do it first. I'll kind of copy.
So I kind of again, probably not the best technique, but
There.
And you're going to get messy when you do bonsai. That is one thing. So there you go.
So kind of grab from the root.
Yeah, grab it around the trunk without, doing too much damage, and I'll kind of hold that if you want to just lift it out.
There you go.
Okay, and then go ahead and put your pot to the
That out
side.
here. I'll put my pot down. And then do we need our other pots at this moment?
Not yet.
Okay.
Because the first thing we got to do is, Cohen, do you remember what the first thing you do is?
Yeah, you have to like
I've tried to
take the
drill
dirt
this
out.
into him. You're skipping a step,
Yeah.
sir.
Oh, I'm just gonna stop.
You need to clean it.
Oh,
Clean the plant.
yeah.
Do these have like specific names at all, or are they just, you call these scissors?
I think
or-
they're bonsai pruning shears. These,
Bonsai pruning
but there are
shears.
different tools in bonsai. So,
Okay.
like,
Yeah, maybe along the way
these
you
are like
can
root
explain a little.
pruners.
Yeah.
These are more for the branches.
Mhm.
For a bigger branch, you need to cut flush. Because again, you're trying to create nature in miniature in bonsai. At least
Okay.
that's the way I practice it.
Nature and miniature.
That's how I learned it.
Cool.
There's a guy in Oregon that I would love for you to interview him sometime, Ryan Neal, and he's like my mentor. He doesn't know he's my mentor, but I mean that's what he does.
Right, that's somebody you look
So
up to.
and he tries to create nature in miniature. He would probably cringe to know that the way I do it is inspired by him, but yeah. So you don't want things that look artificial, like you did that with a.
You want it to look as natural as possible,
Uh-huh.
essentially. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you need to get to know the tree first, and cleaning gives you the opportunity to do that. So basically, you got to look at this. You are going to want to raise it up so it's more of a tree, because in nurseries they're grown as bushes, right? Junipers. But these junipers can be trees. Now some of them will have like a cascading style, like I would say this one, and you can use that. Have you ever seen a tree like growing off the side of a cliff or things like that?
Yeah.
There are different,
Like photos and stuff like that.
nature aspects that you could try to mimic in your thing. I really like junipers. They're one of my favorites. With this one, I would try to make it more of a tree. Mine is a little more of a cascading kind, so I might try to do more cascading.
Okay. How's mine looking? I'm not too sure what style mine would be. Right
Yeah.
now, but
I mean, it has lots of branching, which is good. It gives you lots of options.
okay.
So you really need to decide like what your tree is going to be. And there's a couple more things that we're going to need to do, but first let's start like cleaning it up.
Okay.
One way, the first thing we do to clean up is, Cohen, this is the thing you tried to say at first. What do you do?
The thing I don't know what it's called.
Well, you don't need this. You can do it with your fingers, but you can use a little tool.
Yeah.
What's that tool right there?
It's a root hook. I actually prefer to use a chopstick, but my wife thought it was garbage, and so she threw it away. And so I need to make a new one.
Okay.
But
How do
basically,
you use the root hook?
Cohen, we can see yours the best. You want to show them how to do it?
Yeah. So you like kind of like push it down. You yeah, you kind of just like get the dirt away.
Okay.
So in nurseries, what they do is they always plant the trees deeper than they really would be if they grew in nature. And so the root flare, where the roots start coming out of the trunk, is always buried really deep in there. And you need to see that, because if a seed fell on the ground, it doesn't bury itself 6 inches in the ground.
So we're trying to kind of loosen up this dirt and move it.
He's just moving the top layers of dirt to expose where the root flare is on the tree. And because
things get a little messy, I'm seeing.
things get very
Within
messy.
bonsai, so make sure you got a space where you can get dirt everywhere, right?
Yeah. And when you're using this, you always are going away from the trunk as you
Okay.
pull. It does two things. It protects the trunk a little bit, but it also helps create more radial roots, which is an aesthetic thing in bonsai.
Yeah. Kind of like, I know aesthetic is a big play within bonsai care. So how do you kind of find that balance between like not making it look too, like perfect, but also kind of making it look natural as well?
So for me, I ask myself, so the way I understand it, this may be an urban myth, but bonsai, it wasn't called bonsai, but it was started in China when they would be going on like nature hikes and they'd see a tree that they thought was interesting growing somewhere, like off a cliff or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they'd go home and they try to recreate that in their garden. And then later it was brought to Japan, became bonsai, and was more formalized there as that. So there are specific rules in Japanese bonsai, in my understanding. But for me, it's about putting myself in the shoe of those people who we have beautiful mountains here in Utah.
Yeah.
I've been hiking in them a number of times. I went to Bryce Canyon not that long ago, and you just see these really amazing looking trees just growing on the side of places. So
Yeah.
yes, you want it to look natural, but I try to think of like, okay, what are the most unique things I've seen? We just went to the redwoods also in California.
Oh, cool. How was that?
It was amazing. Now, this isn't a redwood, but still, it gives you ideas. Like, make it look like something that could happen in nature, but something that's aesthetically pleasing, like might be unique.
Yeah. So you say there's definitely like kind of an artistic approach.
I definitely see it as art. Like, even if this goes against, if I want to do something that goes against what like the traditional bonsai says you shouldn't do, but I like the way that looks.
You're gonna do it.
It's for me.
Yeah.
So exactly, I'm gonna do it.
And within like the bonsai community and world, like you know, like communities, whether it be like art or yoga, like they're pretty, you know, strong on their like practices and opinions and like the way to do it, the right way to do it, the wrong way to do it. Would you say the same within bonsai, kind of talk about like the tradition behind the practice?
Well, my understanding is yes. To be honest, I haven't interacted with too many other bonsai like people as into it as I am.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that I was saying, Ryan Neal in Oregon, his whole thing is like creating. There's Japanese bonsai, there's European bonsai, and we should be creating a North American style of bonsai, which can be different from those. And
is there currently a North American style, or is that kind of still being...
It's still kind of being developed from what I can tell. Almost everybody I talk to when I talk about bonsai and even like opening up a store that kind of supports that, loves the idea of it, but almost nobody knows how to do it.
Interesting.
And so I think in North America, it's still in its infancy. I'm sure there are people who are really good at it here, so I'm not saying like, hey, we're pioneers or anything.
Yeah.
But,
would you say that's kind of due to the lack of just like exposure of the practice? Like,
potentially.
Just not a lot of people really knowing even where to start.
I mean,
get into it. 'Cause I know gardening in the North America is like really popular. You know, everyone with their big gardens in their front yard and growing all their fruits and vegetables, but like specifically like this kind of artistic like approach of like styling and bonsai care. I don't know if that's necessarily as popular here with another.
It's definitely not as popular in practice. I mean, my first exposure to it that I can remember as a little kid, the Karate Kid.
Oh yeah, no,
Mr. Miyagi is
that's
doing
how I
bonsai
heard
in
it
his
too.
little studio there. And I remember thinking how cool that tree was. Never thought of doing it myself at that point. But I do remember thinking like, whoa, those trees look amazing.
Yeah.
And that's traditional, Japanese bonsai. So it might be like an intimidation factor.
Yeah.
That has kept people out of it. I don't
Maybe
know why it
like
hasn't
a
taken
culture
off.
thing, like they think like, oh, it's only practice and it can only be practiced over there. Something like that.
So
also,
feel free.
How's mine looking?
It's looking good so far.
Should I be going like down more into here, or?
We will get down into there. And
just
feel
not
free to
yet.
push your dirt off to the side so you can see. Just push it onto the ground. We'll sweep up later. But let's see. I want the camera to be able to see.
Cone's looking good.
Cones, yeah. Don't take any more dirt out of there, though, sir. So keep it there. Yours is a lot smaller, so it's gonna not take as long. So if you see here, Atticus, I'm starting to expose the trunk. I won't push it on the floor yet. Yours is just a little bit. Ours is a lot more. And Cohen is just starting to get into this, which is why I gave him. I know this is your first time, and I gave you a huge one. But Cohen has a few around here, so I don't feel bad about having him practice on a little bit smaller one right now. So just in case anyone's wondering why.
Cohen, how long have you
smaller
been
one.
doing bonsai care with your dad?
I mean, I like giving mine goofy names, but I don't know how long I've been doing
don't know?
it.
What are some of the goofy names you give in your
Well, I
your
did
trees?
one. I did these two maple trees. One was May, and the other one was Pole.
Maple. That's
He did
awesome.
this one here. This is his.
Yeah.
Okay.
He helps that little forest one over there in the corner.
Purple Forest.
Cohen named it Prickle Forest. Okay, so when you get to here and you're starting to see these like larger roots coming off the trunk,
I'm starting to
Atticus,
see like my trunk a little bit more now.
that is your root flare when these bigger roots are starting to come off.
Okay.
And that's where you basically stop trying to get down below there.
So where would you say I'm at right now? Should
Let
I
me
keep
see.
going? Or?
Yeah. Well, I think you're there. You need to pull a little bit you need to get closer to the trunk and pull the dirt away. You've exposed around here really well, but now get up in this area up here.
Up here more. Okay.
And try not to dig into the trunk, but pull it out to pull the dirt that's kind of solidified around that trunk. Because like I say, they bury it too deep.
Okay.
They plant it too deep.
Yeah, so kind of what we were talking about, like how do you see bonsai care and this practice picking up more within North America and like our kind of...
I mean, like I say, I mean, I don't see a lot of like infrastructure building around it yet, but I do think there is starting to become more. But everybody I talk to, like, I can't think of a single time I've talked to someone about this and they're like, and they weren't interested.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to do it, it seems like.
They just don't really know where to start.
Exactly, and that's also, I think, my wife is the one who finally, like, urged me to open the shop. Because she was with me a lot of times when I was talking about it with people, and everyone wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So.
That's cool.
Let's see where you're at there.
How's that looking? Still got some dirt right here.
Sorry, I'm just trying to feel there.
Are you good?
I think you're good.
Okay.
Okay.
Got a good spot.
So, did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, totally. And I was gonna ask, like, you know, I think there's like multiple ways you can kind of approach bonsai care, but like, how do you think approaching it within like more of like a mindfulness mentality and more of a meditative approach, like how do you think that could like maybe make it more less intimidating or more accessible for people to kind of like treat it as more like a meditative practice rather than just be like, oh, I want to become this master bonsai stylist?
I mean, maybe for me, it's more like I got into bonsai because it fulfilled that niche of like mindfulness, but it's fun. Like I really enjoy it, and it's like I've always liked the idea of creating art, but I've never been able to create art, and I kind of see this as like this is my ability to create some sort of art.
Yeah, I mean, you're ultimately like within art, you're either adding or taking away, and this you're kind of doing a little bit of both. Like
yeah.
You know.
So I think the best way to kind of disperse it is to make it fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
Next step is these. You got your root ball kind of cleaned.
Or this one, is this tool called again?
I think it's a root hook.
Root hook. And then now we have our styling shears, or?
Yeah, pruning shears, bonsai,
shears? Okay.
bonsai shears, I don't know. Now, you're going to want to, there's one part of there that you need to identify first on your tree. It's called defining branch. It's your longest branch that's going to stay in your design.
Okay.
So, like for instance, with me, I have this as an option. I really could do a short branch as my longest branch, but then everything else needs to be shorter than that, technically. But again, like I say, I mean, that's the technical rule. You don't need to do that. If you decide you want to do something else because you like that way that looks, do it. Okay. A traditional bonsai styling, this one has been grown from a small plant. Into that is where you get a single trunk kind of growing up and you get the branching off to the side. So if you wanted to try to do something like that with yours, you could. But for me, do what hits you aesthetically the best. Okay. Like you're gonna.
I was kind of eyeing this one right here. I kind of like how it drapes down, and it's like the longest one.
So that branch you're not gonna cut.
Does it have to be at the top?
This is what have to be the top. The defining branch.
Yeah.
The defining branch usually isn't at the top because the top is actually called your apex. And that's another piece you have to identify. So the first thing you do, you can go through and you can take off any dead branches or dead parts of the tree.
I see.
You can just remove that, and there are better tools for cutting it back at the trunk, but don't worry about that because it's such a mess right now. Save them because I can actually make cuttings out of these. It's a little bit silly.
Can you reuse this and plant it at all?
You can use it as a cutting and then it'll grow roots in theory.
Okay.
Junipers are pretty easy to propagate by cuttings. And then we'll be able to use them in like the Apothecary.
Cool. Yeah, so kind of talking more about the Apothecary with the storefront, what's that looking like? What do you have planned to build and how do you want that physical space to act kind of as this like community center around mindfulness and wellness?
Yeah, well, I haven't gotten to this. I haven't talked about this, but my original focus in life on a business career was pharmacy. My dad was a pharmacist.
Oh, cool.
And I was studying pre-pharmacy when I was in kind of the more advanced human anatomy classes, and I realized this wasn't the aspect of pharmacy I liked. I really liked the idea of owning a pharmacy, running a pharmacy, but not as the pharmacist. I like the business side of it. So I switched to business management at that point. That's when my wife and I started our other business, and I eventually went and worked at Amazon up in Salt Lake and whatnot. So the apothecary part of the Apothecary at Bonsai Gardens comes from that, because Apothecary is an old style pharmacy. So aesthetically, I really want it to feel like a modern apothecary, like community gathering center. Dr. Pepper, my favorite drink, was invented by a pharmacist at his soda counter.
Oh, no way. I did not know that.
And so the idea that like people come to the apothecary, they gather, they will get snacks, drinks, that is kind of the feel I want. Our focus is more on like healthier, the healthier side of that. We're not going to be inventing sodas.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll be experimenting with like healthy drinks, or we're going to have kind of the healthier side of snacks, things like that. And then the kind of communal space is for that focus for creating content that we can spread out to help build the community, and also to do things like yoga classes and physical practices of this mindful meditative habit supporting.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Another thing you can look at as you're doing this styling is branches. So for instance, on this, I'm gonna.
So should I be starting to cut like more of these, or?
You can.
Because I haven't really chosen.
I mean, really first, so I'm not going to cut this, but I'm just using this as an example to show you.
Yeah.
On here, you have branches that are going up, you have branches that are going down, and you have branches that are going to the side. Some of these branches will never be able to be used in the design process. For instance, this branch is growing down, but it's also growing back towards the plant. I'm not going to use that in the design. Almost every downward branch, unless I want to create like a second level and have it like come down below that branch, I'm going to remove it because it's not going to be used in the final design. And all this is part of the cleanup. You're getting used to the tree, you're kind of learning it, and hopefully it's striking you as like, hey, this is the kind of bonsai I want to be.
Okay. What are some of the benefits you think like you've experienced, or one can experience by doing this, maybe like alone, or if would it be better with someone else?
I mean, there's an aspect of doing it with someone else that gives you companionship. You get to talk, maybe bounce ideas off. I've had coworkers that I've done it with, and I've learned things about them I didn't know before that have brought us closer together. For me personally, though, it is really all about just letting my mind kind of wander as I do it, and just letting those kind of ideas flow. Running this business, but also running the other business my wife and I run, and really provide a lot more value to the customers. It's one of the things I'm going to focus on with the Apothecary is like, because we're trying to be a co-op. We want this community. We want people to join and be a part of it. And so for that, how can I provide them enough value that being a co-op member makes sense?
And explain a little bit about like this co-op, like how is that going to work within the Apothecary?
Well, I am a big believer in like you have to sit with something to really fully develop it. So it is going to change significantly as time goes on, as kind of like we sit in the room with it and work with it. But right now the idea is we're not going to try to take more money from you at every opportunity we get. We're going to provide services. Like I really like stunning bonsai. We're going to have shelves there that have bonsai on it that I've styled, that if you're a member, come in, and if your current plant died, bring in your dead one and take a new one home. We're not gonna charge you for that. It's just gonna be something that you can come in and grab. Heavy discounts on a lot of things. We're gonna let you borrow things a lot, as opposed to having to buy it to help support these meditative habits. I mean, like I say, I feel like I'm really underselling it. That doesn't sound like it's providing enough value. There's gonna be a lot more, and as we go, there's going to be, we're going to be sitting with it, living with it in the room, and saying like, oh, this thing is something else we could do. And when we see that we'll take advantage of that.
You're kind of approaching it as you would with a bonsai tree, kind of, pruning it here and there, letting it sit for a little.
You have to get to know it. You have to clean
it
up.
To know it. Yeah, I think it's really cool. And I kind of, I think you coming from your background within business and your time within like the pharmaceutical industry, like you wouldn't really think like, oh, like a big corporate business, or like a business person would kind of like how you said you didn't like was fully on board with like meditation and mindfulness practice before, but now like you've seen, you know, how it's not only affected you as a person, but also like as a entrepreneur, as a boss, as, you know, a partner in collaboration with your wife, you know, with your guys'
It does help me in my life. Like, I do feel like I'm a better father because of it. Not that I don't think I was a bad father before. I was never that person where I would classify myself as a bad father, but it chills me out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I get less worked up by certain things. I kind of tend to think like, what does it matter? Yeah. Hold on one second. Cohen, what are you asking me?
What else are we getting than wiggly branches?
Any ones that, so you know this, I haven't talked to Atticus about this yet, but where you have two branches coming out really close together, you got to pick one. So you'd want to take off something like that. Here you have 1, 2, 3, 4 branches like really close together. Probably pick a couple of those to keep right now.
I was about to say, so I have like a bunch right here. Should I kind of start selecting which ones I want to...
Once you feel like you've cleaned it pretty well, I mean, the idea is you can start to see more of it, but you're going to start to have to make some big choices because it's way too big.
Yeah.
So...
all of these, there's a bunch of branches.
Yeah, there's going to be too many there. Cohen, can you put this down for 1 second and go up there and grab that one with the red pot. It's not my favorite of my junipers, but it shows like this one, Atticus, came from a plant the same size as yours.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be cool to see.
And so eventually you're trying to whittle it down to something about this size.
Oh wow, so we're taking off a lot more.
Yeah, you're going to take off a lot, and you're going to leave little things that are setting it up for future, like clouds of foliage. It's kind of like pads is what they're called. So you are going to have to make some big decisions about which branches stay, which branches don't stay.
Okay.
So I'll leave this here just kind of like as inspiration.
A lot more than I thought we would.
You can also start to think about its journey if it was in the wild. Like junipers grow in like some of the harshest environments on earth. They grow at the tops of mountains. They grow in rocky areas where there's very little soil. They're getting blown by ice and sand all the time.
So they're tough plants.
Yeah, and they're also going to suffer damage from that. So as you're designing this, you can think like, oh, I can maybe use this branch as like, this was a branch that it was growing out and that branch got damaged by a rock slide, or there was a big ice storm and it killed off this part of the tree. And then with juniper, one really cool thing you can do is there's living tissue and there's dead tissue. You can create tons of dead wood in junipers that really contrast really well. The interior of juniper is like bright red, and the outside looks kind of grayish, so you can get a cool play on those. So another area you can start cleaning up to give yourself some more perspective. Branches, let's say if I'm keeping these two branches probably, I am not going to want branches that are growing into each other. Because a big part of creating these kind of clouds of foliage is having negative space between the clouds. So there's a gap. So if they're growing into each other, that's just going to cause problems. So,
for example, I kind of have this branch right here kind of going that way. I kind of want all flowing this way. Would you recommend cutting off this one?
Potentially, yeah, because you have stuff growing on top of it. You
I
also
like
have
how it's all flowing
this growing up here that is going to just shade that out. So unless you move this with wire, which with our time limit, we're probably not going to get to wire. We'll probably be able to like do an initial like repot cleanup of this, and then another time we'll have to get back in wire.
So you said this one I could probably get rid of.
You could probably cut that all the way back to the trunk if you wanted. Although with junipers, you don't have to cut to the trunk because you can always deadwood it. And when you cut bigger branches, you can use these. These are, they're not concave, they're angled though, so you can get really close to the trunk.
Yeah. You said deadwood, what's that?
So deadwood is basically you take off all the outer living tissue, and it's never going to grow leaves again, or needles in this case. And that's how you, like with juniper in particular, that's a real possibility. So Cohen, why don't you grab your pot? Yours is one of the two smaller ones, because yours is just sitting out there, and I don't want those roots to dry out. Because yours is smaller.
Right here, these.
So that one is for one of these two bigger ones. I was thinking more yours because I think yours is a little bit larger. And then these are two smaller. This one's a little bit smaller. Go on, why don't you use that one?
Okay.
Do you remember how to do it?
Yeah.
So just make sure you cover those holes with that. Bonsai pots have, I'll show the bottom of this real fast. So there's drainage holes there, and then there's these smaller holes here that are for wires. And they're anchor wires, essentially. He's going to put them through there and anchor this plant in place. Yeah, it probably needs to be longer than that.
Jason, are there like specific pots or trays with like you need to use for bonsai or can use, or can you kind of throw it in like just any pot?
So traditionally, yes, there are bonsai trays. Going back to that thing I was telling you about, where I kind of imagine like going out on a hike and seeing a tree that you want to recreate at home in miniature. For me, you use any small tray, shallow tray that you can. And so that's one of the things I've been doing lately is experimenting with different types of trays. Not all of them work out, but like if it's a shallow container, like for instance here, I've got this one. It's a little marble like butter dish.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It has enough of a concave design that there is a drainage hole in it, but enough of a concave design that it can hold the plant. And I don't know. I just like experimenting with those kind of things.
How do I do this again?
Let's put that in there. You put those through the smaller holes there. So one up this one and one up that one, and then on the other side you do another wire. You can wire those other mesh things in also, but why don't you use the end closer to your hand? Flip thread through.
So you wire. So what does that do essentially?
He's going to use this to kind of hold the plant in place.
Okay.
Because another thing that doesn't happen in nature is generally you don't get perfectly symmetrical trees. So you're going to want to plant it like askew or at an angle or different things like that.
Symmetry kind of comes into play within bonsai.
Yeah, you want asymmetry in bonsai because nature creates asymmetry in general. So in bonsai, your tree has a front, and that front is determined by your root flare. Where's there interesting roots coming out, which is why we had to expose those roots, Atticus. The trunk line, the most interesting angle on the trunk line, and the most interesting branches. What was that?
Movement.
Movement is what it's called, yeah. When the trunk or the branches kind of move back and forth, it's called movement. And one thing you do with wiring is you're trying to add movement back into that branch if it's straight.
Yeah.
So where you've got a little bit of a straight part here at the beginning, I'm going to show this to the camera. It's not perfectly straight. You got a little curve there, but you have a little bit of a straight. You need to try to get rid of that. So if this is the front of your pot, Cohen, what angle gives you the best movement?
Well, for the top, that angle.
You gotta look at the whole thing though, starting here up.
That angle.
This angle that we're at, I agree, because here you have a little bit of a curve, and another way you can kind of accentuate it is by planting it at a little bit of a kind of an angle, and then we can wire it. So don't plant it perfectly straight like that, plant it like that. So what we're gonna do here is we are going to fill the pot, and one thing you use with bonsai is you don't use traditional potting soil, you use a really well draining mix.
Okay.
Which is part of what makes bonsai really kind of high. They take a lot of attention. If you don't pay attention to your bonsai, you'll come back 3 days later and it will be dead.
So you got to be taking care of this like every day.
Yeah, because you're trying to create small needle size, small leaf size, and whatever you're doing. You're trying to recreate nature in miniature. Well, the tree doesn't want to grow in miniature, so you gotta kind of control that through different things. So what we're doing is he's gonna. You gotta put it down a little bit closer up here. You gotta cross it up there because the point of this is it's gonna.
So he's like tying it down.
Yeah, we're not gonna tie it down like super hard, but he's tying it down to hold it in place at this angle.
Okay.
Until the roots itself can grow out, and hold it in place in the soil.
How old can a bonsai? Like how long can a bonsai last for?
I mean, there are some that are really old, hundreds of years old. I don't know what the oldest bonsai is. I have one. My oldest one here in my greenhouse is 65 years old.
Wow.
I did not do that one from scratch. I bought that one. I wanted to have kind of one showpiece bonsai that was styled by someone who was already an expert.
Yeah. As
I start to build out mine, because I realize I'm going to kill some because I'm still learning. I've only been doing this a couple of years. I don't want to spend, thousands and thousands of dollars on trees that I'm going to kill.
Yeah.
So I tend to buy smaller trees, and I'm going to let them develop over time. But I wanted to have at least one. That was like a really
Yeah,
nice,
it's like an
well-developed
example
one.
to follow.
And that's my 65-year-old one.
Cool. All right, so Jason, kind of going back to what we were saying with the Apothecary, how you want to collaborate with other people to help individuals start on their mindfulness journey within these different practices, and kind of helping them find a place to start with specifically bonsai care. If you could go back and tell yourself, like, what would be like the main things you would tell yourself to help you start this journey? Like, what would you want the people watching to know if they want to get started specifically within bonsai care?
I mean, it's just intimidating, right?
Yeah.
So I would tell myself, don't be afraid to just start doing it. And I think at the beginning, my fear was like, oh, my family's going to think I'm silly. I'm not Japanese. I'm not Asian.
Yeah.
And I'm doing bonsai. And there was that. And so I had a tendency to kind of keep it to myself, which then decreased my ability to actually learn the thing. So I would say just go start doing it. Find some place where you can get basic information, and then just start doing it. And even if you don't have the basic information, start experimenting.
Yeah, like research.
And just make sure it's fun. And if it's fun, you're going to keep doing it, and then you'll get better, even if you create something completely new. I mean, I'm not saying everyone's going to create something new, but not everyone needs to do it exactly the same way. So
yeah.
I wish I had known just to start doing it, have fun with it, and I'll find the resources I need to do it, to learn it.
Yeah, because, I mean, like you said, like that one YouTuber, that one guy from the UK you're watching, like there are resources out there, and especially now with your business too, it's like creating an online platform and a physical store space for people to come and learn more about bonsai care and treatment. Like, it's becoming a lot more accessible, so like finding the resources out there.
Yeah, even if we don't use our store as a resource, you know, I really do believe it's beneficial to, everyone could benefit from the mindfulness side of it. Because I was resistant, and I wish, maybe that's the better answer is, I wish I hadn't been so resistant to it for so long.
So just don't be afraid to try.
Don't be closed-minded.
Yeah.
Don't think you know what something is before you've tried it. That's what I guess I would probably say, because that's where I was. Thought I knew what this was, and I didn't.
Yeah. Well, no, that's great. I think that's great for everyone to hear, you know, like if you can do it, anyone can do it, and just all the benefits that come from it, whether it be personal or within your family or within the workplace. Like, there's so many things that can come just from taking the time to, you know, try something new and to really approach something in a meditative, mindful way. And I think that's really cool, because like I think just by doing this with you and Cohen over the past hour, like I feel like I've just been so focused on trying to style this tree the best way I can, but also like conduct this interview and also kind of reflect upon, you know, the answers you gave me about like, oh, like how can I be better within my life while doing this practice, you know, like what are thoughts and ideas come into my mind. So that's one thing I think I'll be able to take away from this, which is really cool. The journey and everyone else, I don't know if you guys want to, you got a little 360 view. Cohen, do you want to show them yours too? What yours is looking like? Yeah, I'm kind of liking where this is going. Definitely a lot of work to do, but we'll get this thing potted, and definitely we'll have to be taking care of this every single day and watering it for the next potentially 60 years, who knows? Maybe we'll make a video 60 years from now to see what it looks like, but yeah, it's awesome. Well, Jason, thanks again for the time and letting us come over here and talk to you a little bit about bonsai care and your journey, and specifically your business in the bonsai area. But any last thing you wanna tell?
No, I mean, please feel free to join us, but even if you don't, like I already said, just get out there and start giving yourself some quiet time to think and let your brain create those kind of random connections and come up with good ideas.
Yeah, and definitely stay tuned for more content to come with other people within the, you know, mindfulness practices, whether it be yoga, breath work, anything like that. So we're excited, but yeah, I think that's it. Very good.
Let's pot yours, and then you can show it potted.
Thanks for watching our first episode of Mindful Mentorship with our special guest and proud sponsor, Jason Moyer. We have included a link for a beginner's toolkit for those who are curious about starting their own bonsai journey in the description. Here is the final result.